Right, Shalom Aleichem Rabotai. Welcome to our class, Yalkut Yosef. We are up to the topic of Tefillin. We're going to move forward with that. Today we're going to discuss a few things. One of them is the item called Halacha Lemoshe MeSinai. What does that mean? Well, we know that on Har Sinai, Moshe received the Torah, the written Torah, but he also received the oral Torah. Above that, there's also another category, and that category is called Halacha Lemoshe MeSinai. What is that? What's the difference between that and the other two? So, B'ezrat Hashem, we'll touch it today. But let's just continue from last time. There's one little topic before we get to that we did not finish. Regarding, I see everyone's joining right now. Buchim habayim, buchim habayim. So William, Mr. Giacomo, buchim habayim. Regarding a person that did not have a Brit Milah, but not because he was against the Kadosh Baruch Hu. No. He would have liked to have a Brit Milah. And the halacha says that if a person has brothers that died from the Brit Milah, lo alenu, in that case, they don't do a Brit Milah to this guy because they see that that there's a tendency, it's in the blood, there's a danger, something in his family, the brothers died from it. So we don't do a Brit Milah to this guy. So he's still a kosher guy. So what's the question about him? Our question is that we have something called ot, right? What did we learn? That there's a ot, there's a covenant. And at any given time, we have to have two otot. One ot is the tefillin. One ot is the brit milah that a person had. And another ot is Shabbat. So we explained that on Shabbat, you don't have to put on tefillin because we have Shabbat. And we always have the brit milah. So at any given time, we should have two of the otot, two of the covenants. This person is lacking the Brit Milah. So we may want to say that on Shabbat, he should put on Tefillin because he doesn't have the Brit Milah. So let him have two on Shabbat. But the halacha is not like this. Anybody want to guess why? Why doesn't he need both of those otot on Shabbat? Why is it enough that he doesn't have the Brit Milah and he just has the Shabbat? Well, the answer is because he would have liked to do the Brit Milah. The Torah tells him, don't do the Brit Milah because it puts your life in danger. Since he's doing the commandment of Hashem by not doing the Brit Milah, it's as if there and existing, and therefore it's sufficient for him not to put on Tefillin on Shabbat. Okay, we end with that, and now we'll get to the topic of the day, Halacha Lemoshe MeSinai. Now, why is this important to talk about? Because a lot of the topics of Tefillin, Rambam, I think, quotes 10 different topics in Tefillin that are Halacha Lemoshe MeSinai. Let me throw a few examples at you. For example, the color of the straps of the tefillin, that they need to be black. The shape of the tefillin, that they need to be square. If you look at the tefillin, they're like, there's like a sewing part over there that they have to sew it, that has to be made from a certain part of an animal. All these things are Halacha Lemoshe MeSinai. So also the parchment that it's made of, we'll talk about this B'ezrat Hashem. So what is Halacha Lemoshe MeSinai? So as I said in the introduction, when Moshe Rabbeinu received the Torah on Har Sinai, he received a written Torah that we all know, and that was written down, easy peasy. That's the easy part. The oral Torah is a very broad category. What does it mean, the oral Torah? So we have what is familiar to us as the Mishnah. Mishnah is oral commandments that pass down from generation to generation. And when we have the Mishnah, the Gemara, the books that we learn from, over there you have discussions about what was the idea. Did the Torah mean for us to do this? Did the Torah mean for us to do that? It's kind of an interpretation, an oral interpretation on the written Torah. However, Halacha Lemoshe MeSinai, which was also given on Mount Sinai, is another category, which is stuff that we just accept. There are no questions asked. This is what Moshe Rabbeinu got. There's no discussion. There's no one rabbi would hold like this, one rabbi would hold like that. No, it's Halacha Lemoshe MeSinai. Part of the Halacha Lemoshe MeSinai has to do with the Tefillin. Torah only tells us that the Tefillin, it just says you have to have it on your arm. You have to have it between your eyes. But what color, what shape, what should be inside, there's no elaboration. That's when the Halacha Lemoshe MeSinai. By the way, the translation of Halacha Lemoshe MeSinai means the halacha that was given to Moshe on Mount Sinai. So let's quote some of the criteria, stuff that need to be done according to Halacha Lemoshe MeSinai. First of all, the ink. What is the ink that you use? This was given in Moshe in Har Sinai, what the ink you use. Also, the leather, the parchment that we use. Now you would say, what do you mean? A leather is leather. But actually, without Hashem, maybe one day we'll get into this, but basically the animal, when you take off its leather, the leather has two useful parts. There's the part that is closer to the flesh, and there's the part on the outside where the hair of the animal grows. So actually, the area that we use is the area of the outside, all right? It's called the outer layer as opposed to the inner one, which is called the duchsostra. If anybody could say that 5 times in a row, you get a dozen points from me. Duchsostra. That's what it's called. That's the inner part. That's not what we use. We use the outside part. It needs to be square. Now, when we say that the tefillin has to be square, it's in 3 different parts. First of all, well, I wish I had here an example to show you, but this is, I guess, square enough, all right? So let's say this is the tefillin, right? And over here we have the box sitting in the middle, right? It's not really in the middle because on this side, this is called the ma'abarta, where the strap of the tefillin goes through. But we have to imagine as if it's not really there, and we are left with a square. So this square needs to be a perfect square. The sewing around the square where the box stands out needs to be a perfect square. The box needs to be a perfect square. All these things were given on Har Sinai. What else? By the way, when I said the duchsostus that I was talking about, the mezuzah is written on that part of the leather, the inner part, as opposed to the tefillin that is written on the outer part. All right? The shin, if you ever look at the tefillin, you'll see there's a letter shin written on the tefillin. Where did that come from? We don't know. Hashem said on Har Sinai, we have to keep it. Also the black straps, the ma'abarta, what I just described to you, that there's a part where the strap goes through. We don't consider that part of the square. That is also halacha Lemoshe MeSinai, etc. All right. So let's take it step by step. Regarding the batim ashchorim, that they call it the bayit, the house of the tefillin. It's basically a home because it's holding inside of it the parchments. So these batim need to be black. Some say it's halacha Lemoshe MeSinai that they need to be black, that the color also, besides the fact that it needs to be square, that it also needs to be black. Arav Ovadia says that no, it's actually not a halacha Moshe MeSinai. It's good to make them black, but if they are not black, then it's not going to be something holding you back from filling the mitzvah of tefillin. So if a guy sees tefillin that is not perfectly black, say, I'm not. No, it's better you put it, because according to Rav Ovadia, it's not a requirement, and you can do that. Okay. The next criteria is ribua, that it needs to be a perfect square. Im en ribua nikar kegon shenishtaftef harbe. What does that mean? So let's take the square, okay? If this is our square, now imagine this part is the ma'abarta, but you actually have the house standing out, it's a perfect square. In order for the tefillin to be not kosher, it's not that if one of the corners got rubbed, then we're done. No, because we have a tendency to always be meticulous on our tefillin, and if it gets scrubbed a little, then we fix it, we go to a guy, we do it professionally. Good. Ze eli v'anveh. We want to beautify our mitzvot. But in order for the tefillin to be pasul, to be not kosher, it has to become some sort of a round shape, meaning it has to get so worn out from all 4 corners until it may seem to you like a circle. If that happened, then the tefillin are not kosher, and that's the halacha Lemoshe MeSinai. Regarding the black straps, so that is mandatory. We need to have it. Last week we explained that where is the location that needs to be black. Around the head, we said, not the ones that fall down. Of course, it's good to color them, but there's areas that it's a must. We spoke about that last week. Now, if you want to color them, you can't just take a shoe coloring item and color it, or a marker, right? It has to be made from a certain ink, and you have to have a certain machshava in mind. All these are halachot Lemoshe MeSinai. Now, Rabbeinu Tam. I'm sure some of you have heard of the concept of the tefillin of Rabbeinu Tam. Some of you even put it on, I'm aware. But let's go through this a little bit quicker. We all know that the tefillin that everybody agrees that we have to put on is the tefillin of Rashi. What is the difference between Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam? So let's open this category a little bit. We have 2 different tefillin. Rashi, by the way, was the grandfather of Rabbeinu Tam. Now, we may think that the difference between these 2 tefillin, which we'll point in a second, occurred only about 1,000 years ago or something like that, when Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam were alive and there was a controversy. but that's not the case. The idea that there's different opinions of what is required was already from before. Only Rashi put his name on this and Rabbeinu Tam put his name on that, and that's how it developed. So we call them Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam, but really this is a long-going controversy, at least according to the Peshat. According to the Kabbalah, you need both of them. They both complete something. But according to the simple interpretation, what was the controversy? Rashi held that you need to have Kadesh li kol bechor, v'haya kivyecha, shema v'haya im shamua. Rabbeinu Tam holds Kadesh li v'haya kivyecha, v'haya im shamua and shema. That's basically the difference. He believes that the v'haya needs to be in the middle and not at the end. All right. However, each one of them learned it. That's the big controversy, and that's why there's two opinions regarding what the tefillin, which one is right. And therefore, those that want to be careful, then they put one on, and then they take it off, and they put the other one off. Again, I'm saying according to the Pshat, according to the Kabbalah, you need both of them simultaneously. But according to the simple interpretation, Rav Ovadia himself, the author of the Yalkut Yosef, which obviously taught Allah the halachot to his son, so that this is where we're learning from. He said, let me just close this door for a second. He used to pray I used to pray in his minyan a few times, and I saw what he would do. And of course, he would take off the tefillin of Rashi and put on the Rabbeinu Tam. Now, why? Because even if you look in the Shulchan Aruch, it would say that there's enough space to put both tefillin on simultaneously. Only Rav Ovadia had certain concerns. He said that the problem with putting on both of them is the area where both tefillin could be put on is limited. So in order to fit two tefillin in there, they have to be very small. In order to have very small tefillin, the parchment and where you write everything and then you have to push it into the tefillin is going to be very small. So the writing is going to be very small. When you have such small writings, there's potential for problems. There's potential for letters not being perfectly kosher. And therefore, he would want to avoid that. According to Kabbalah, no, that's not what we do. But either way, this is the famous machloket between Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam. Now, Halacha says that if you are not someone that is known as, like let's call it a mehudar ba'alacha, like a Torah scholar, then you shouldn't put on the tefillin of Rabbeinu Tam because it may look like you have ga'ava, like you're proud and yuhara, right? You're conceited. However, the poskim, the rabbis of our time, all say that was in the past. Today, anyone that puts on the tefillin of Rabbeinu Tam, no one is going to look at him and say, "Oh, look at him." No. It's become a normal thing. Therefore, if you want to put it on, you are allowed to. But min adin, the Sephardim have the custom of Rashi. Ashkenazim, by the way, you don't see so much Ashkenazim putting on Rabbeinu Tam unless they follow the Kabbalah. But a lot of the Sephardim have adapted that minhag, and they put on 2 pairs of tefillin. All right. So we are not allowed to fall asleep. Now we're done with the Lemoshe MeSinai. We're going to jump to the next topic. Falling asleep with the tefillin. We should know that that's the reason why they told us not to put on the tefillin at night. Why not put it on at night? What's the difference? Where do we see that you have to put it on during the day? No, we don't. However, the concern is that if someone puts them on at night, he may fall asleep with them. And if he falls asleep with them, then what is our concern? That he will do what? The language of the halacha is yafiach bahem. He will pass gas with the tefillin. That's one example of doing something that's disgraceful for the tefillin, but that's the idea. Since at night, Steve was also showing the hands. We don't control our hands. We may touch something tameh. We're not so much in control at night, and therefore you avoid putting on the tefillin at night. Now, what happens if a person has a stomach issue? He has a stomach problem and he has to go to the bathroom a lot. How can he put on tefillin? He knows that in a couple of minutes he may have to go again. He has whatever condition that he has to go to the bathroom a lot. So is he allowed to put on tefillin or not? So the halacha says that for Amidah, he shouldn't keep on the tefillin because that's pretty long. But for Kiryat Shema and the berachot of Kiryat Shema, you can put on the tefillin, read the berachot Kiryat Shema, read the Shema, and then on Amidah take it out. And then in case in the middle of Amidah he has to go, he will go out. But during berachot Kiryat Shema, he is allowed to put on the tefillin. All right, hopefully none of us will have to be in that situation, but good to know. Now, what is the right age to teach your son to start putting on tefillin? Obviously, bar mitzvah, of course. We're talking before bar mitzvah. Is that even a thing? So we see that there are different customs in that, but let's see what the Yalkut Yosef tells us. He says that if the boy is so mature that he's able to keep himself clean, I'm reminding you, when you come to the tefillah, you have to make sure that all your nikavim, all your exits are perfectly clean. Now, when it's a little boy, how can you can't trust it. At a certain age, kids become mature enough and they understand. If they haven't become mature enough, either way, once bar mitzvah is there, they have to put on the tefillin. But if he's mature enough before bar mitzvah, Yalkut Yosef, even 1 or 2 years before that, if he's able to, if you're sure that he's clean, then he is allowed to put on the tefillin. He says, just be careful that you bring your son to the minyan, he's wearing tefillin, everybody's going to count him as one of the 10, because you must have had bar mitzvah if he's putting on the tefillin. So be aware, warn everybody, he's not bar mitzvah, he's not yet, it's not the time, he's just putting it before. But most people, the custom is about a month or so before the bar mitzvah, they start putting on tefillin and get the child used to it. But if he's a special child, even 1 or 2 years before, says Yalkut Yosef. Very interesting question. Sefirat HaOmer. Soon we're touching this, Pesach. This boy that we just spoke about, the bar mitzvah boy, he was born during Sefirat HaOmer. Let's say he was born on Rosh Chodesh Iyar, all right? So right now he's somewhere around 14 days or so in the Sefirat HaOmer. And every day he was counting, he was saying a bracha, and he was counting. Now his birthday appears. Now he turns 13. Is he allowed to continue counting the Sefirat HaOmer with a bracha or not? What's the root of the question? Why would it be a problem? The answer is because what is the mitzvah of Sefirat HaOmer? Is every day on its own a mitzvah, or counting all 49 days is a mitzvah? But if you miss one, then you're out of it. So this is a big controversy. And because it's a big controversy, we want to be careful. We don't say brachot, right? Safek berachot lakel. When you have a doubt regarding berachot, we are lenient, and therefore, when the boy became bar mitzvah, up till now, he was allowed to say the bracha. But the bracha that he was saying was not a bracha because he's commanded. It was midin chinuch, to educate him. Just like a 6-year-old boy, you give him a cup of water, you tell him say a bracha. It's not me that I'm obligated. He's not obligated. He did it without an obligation. Now that he turned 13 in the middle of Sefirat HaOmer, the Sefirat HaOmer became an obligation for him. The only problem is, for the first 13 days that he was counting, he counted without an obligation, and now he got the obligation. So is it considered connected, and therefore he can continue counting with a bracha, or he has to be careful? So as usual, we are always careful with berachot, and therefore in that case, the katan will count the Sefirat HaOmer, but without a beracha. And I want to remind you, a lot of the times we are concerned about the beracha. The beracha is a very good thing, but that doesn't hold us back from the mitzvah. If someone doesn't say a beracha and he puts on tefillin, he still counts as he puts on tefillin. So the ikar is to do the counting. Only we tell the boy, you are not able to say it with a beracha, because in order to say the beracha, you have to say the whole, there's an opinion that you need the whole package. And for you, that whole package didn't exist. Which is a side note regarding the bar mitzvah boys. All right. Anybody want to try to answer this question? Listen to this. I buy my son a pair of tefillin. He turns bar mitzvah. It's the first time he's putting on tefillin. Should he say shechianu or should he not say shechianu? And I want a reason behind it. Simon, what's the smile about?
I don't want to be the one to say. I would say yes.
You would say no. Listen, everybody has to.
Does he fully understand what the meaning of shechianu is at that stage? If he's starting to do it earlier on, sometimes they start doing it like my kids. They advise me to have them put it on from like 12 and a half or 6 months before. That's what you're talking about, right? You're talking about
I'm talking
earlier on or on the day.
Let's assume that on the first time that he put on tefillin, will he say shechianu? Or you know what? With a child, I get what you're saying. Maybe he's aware, maybe he's not aware. Let's put that on the side. Let's say Simon now decided I learned the halachot of tefillin. Now I want to buy a pair that has all the exact halachot to be perfect. He buys a brand new pair of tefillin. He puts it on for the first time. Does he say shechianu on this mitzvah?
I like to say yes, but
you'd like to say yes. Anybody want to try to say no? We have two yeses.
I'm assuming it's no.
No, listen,
I'm gonna follow Simon. Simon say yes, I'm gonna follow Simon.
Simon says, all right.
No, you asked the question.
No.
Who's saying no? I hear a no here.
Ziv, he put on
It's
this
no.
is not his
You
first
can-
time he's
only
putting on
for
tefillin,
tzitzit.
you're saying, right? This is like you buy a new set.
Okay, the Khatan, he says Shechianu on the talit. Is it the first time he's putting on a talit?
No,
It's not the
Like I
first
said,
time.
no, I hope not.
But it's a new talit, no?
It's a new
But it's and the tefillin are new. So I'm saying if he has new
You don't
tefillin,
say Shechianu.
It's not clothing,
Don't say
though. I
Shechianu
don't know,
for
maybe it's not
tefillin.
like clothing.
guys, Ilan hit the jackpot.
What do you
The
say?
reason why we say Shechianu on talit is not because of the mitzvah. Mitzvot lo ne'ana. We don't say Shechianu on mitzvot that like this, right? Certain mitzvot that we do say Shechianu are mitzvot that come from time to time, like a lulav, like a shofar, because they're not always there. But mitzvot that are always there, we do not say Shechianu on them. So the talit was thrown in there to confuse us. But really, the only reason why we say Shechianu on a talit is midin beged, because it's a clothing item. I'm reminding you, a talit is a clothing item that had four corners. That's how they used to get dressed. Why do we say Shechianu on it? Because it's a fancy clothing item. But if a person just buys a t-shirt, remember, I don't know if we discussed this one time, but there's a certain amount of money that you have to spend on the item for you to say Shechianu. For each person, it may be a little different, but it has to be an amount that you have a certain pleasure, right? One of the rabbis in Israel, Rav Butbul, that I love to listen to him, is the son-in-law, Rav Ovadia. He said around 200 shekel. That should be in Israel a nice amount where a person, where he buys a shirt or a pair of pants, he feels that they're already special, he can say on. So talit is always above that. It's over 300 shekel. By the way, someone called his radio show this week, very interesting. And he said, Rabbi, I bought a talit katan, the small ones that we put under, that soon of you are going to get, soon, Bezrat Hashem, some of you. That talit katan, he says, I love it. It's beautiful, and I spent 150 shekel on it. Can I say Shechianu on it? So the Rav, he just said a few weeks ago that you need to pay 200. He said, listen, I said 200, but it depends on you. Are you really happy with it? I'm very happy. Say for you, even 150 shekel. If you're happy with it, you could say Shechianu on it. But the reason we're saying Shechianu on it is because it's like a clothing item. Any clothing item that makes you happy and has a certain value, you would say Shechianu. Tefillin, it's a mitzvah. On mitzvot, we don't say Shechianu, except for those that come from time to time, like on the lulav, like on the shofar, etc. Okay.
Wow.
Hazaku Baruch. We had a this is a nice discussion. Okay. Now regarding the author, just so you know, in order to make a tefillin proper, besides having good parchment, besides having a nice shaped box, which recently I've been exposed to how different can two pairs of tefillin be, even without the parchment. Just the box itself could move from $200 to $1,000. I'm talking just the box empty. But the gaps are very big. So besides all of that, we have the mitzvah of having a very holy author. That's one thing. Besides him being holy, his handwriting, his ability to write. Now, why am I saying this? Because today there's a new invention. In the last few years, they came out with something called a rafidograph. That's what it's called in Hebrew, which basically means it's like a special pen that these authors use. It has ink inside, but as opposed to the feather, right? Usually they write it with a feather or wood, and they have to sharpen it, and it has to be good so that they can write a letter. Then they dip it in the ink, and they start writing the Torah. They dip it again. Now what happens? Sometimes there's too much ink, sometimes there's too little, and then the letter spreads. You ruin the whole word. You have to erase. Sometimes you can't erase. If it's tefillin, it's a problem. So many problems. That's the specialty of a good writer. However, today with this rafidograph, with this new pen, it's kosher, right? We'll see soon to what level it's kosher, but some people use it. The handwriting is perfect. The amount of ink is measured. It spills out only if you push. If you don't push it, it's writing. It's like writing with a pen. So you see today, some tefillin look unbelievably beautiful, perfect, straight. Like you can't believe it. It looks like a machine. That is written with rafidograph. Is it pasul? Is it forbidden? No, it's not pasul. However, it doesn't have the same level of, I would say, ze'eli v'anveu, of beautifying the mitzvot before Hashem, as someone that wrote it with a feather. And therefore, Rav Ovadia says that if an author wrote it with that rafidograph, with that pen, it's kosher, but he cannot sell it to anybody unless he tells them, you need to know that this was written with rafidograph. And if he doesn't tell him, he says, there's a chashash of gezer. I fear that it's considered like he's cheating on him. So just know, when you go to buy tefillin, there are a few questions that we need to ask. We need to know certain limitations on us. What can we know? But the box, the shape needs to be good. The materials need to be good. We need an expert for that. But regarding the author, you want to know that the sofer is a tzaddik person. And you also want to know if he used rafidograph or not. Because if he used rafidograph, the value of the tefillin is much lower. And therefore, even though it looks very beautiful, but that's not enough. So just be aware of that. This is something I've been exposed to recently. All right. By the way, there's a way to tell if you see above the letters, sometimes you have these like lines coming out. So with the rafidograph, the lines are a little bit, they're more rounded than straight lines because the shape of that pen is more round. So some people can tell, but it's very hard to tell. You need to be have a good eye. I can't tell, but I've heard someone that is able to. Okay. Now, regarding Seder Aktiva, the order of writing. So I'm just talking about Tefillin now. We're not talking about Sefer Torah or Mezuzah. We're learning the Yalkut of Tefillin. You need to know this. When an author writes Tefillin, the order, let's say when he writes Rashi, Kadesh li v'haya kiviyacha, Shma v'haya im shamua. He has to first write Kadesh li, and then v'haya kiviyacha, and then Shema, and then v'haya im shamua. Even if it's not in the arm it's all on one parchment. So obviously he starts from the beginning. But in the head, it's 4 different parchments that they shoved each one in a different box, has 4 places to put it in. He cannot say, you know what, today I'm in the mood to write Shema. I'm good at Shema today. It's coming out nicely. He'll write 20 Shmas, you put it in the Tefillin, and then you go backward. No. The order of the Tefillin has to be if he didn't do it according to that order, pasul, we can't use this tefillin. By the way, same thing with Rabbeinu Tam. If he's writing Rabbeinu Tam, if he does something not according to the order, you cannot use this tefillin. That's why the tefillin are a little bit more complicated than writing, for example, a Megillah. You should know. Megillat Esther is the easiest thing halachically to write. Because any mistake that you make, you can fix. There are also no names of Hashem in there. It's a big problem to erase Hashem's name, right? So that's easy. Tefillin is a very hard thing because there needs to be a certain order. And if the guy wrote and then he skipped to the next word, and now he sees, oh my God, wait, there's a problem. A few words before, I wrote a letter that is wrong. Now, he can't go back and fix that because once he goes back and fix that, he didn't write it according to the order. Very big problems with tefillin. Therefore, we need to have trust in the author and the sofer because he can write it while listening to music and smoking a cigarette, and he has beautiful handwriting, and we could never know if he wrote it according to the order, with the kavanot, with everything that is required to be in the tefillin. We just see a piece of paper, and therefore it's important to be aware of who we're buying it from. You can't just go, oh, it looks nice, we'll take it. Always get a recommendation. Always find someone that knows the person and could testify on. All right. We have one more halacha Be'ezrat Hashem, I think, for today, and we'll finish over there. And hopefully next time I will see you in New York. So, what happens if a person, let's say he only has one tefillin, all right? He either has the hand or the head. Am I allowed to use, let's say, the tefillin of Rosh and put it on my arm? Because that's what I have. So the answer is, no, you're not allowed to use the head to put it on the arm, but it doesn't mean that you can't use the arm to put it on the head. Why? Because as we said last week, if I'm not mistaken, this last week, that ma'alin b'kodesh, you have to go up in kedusha. The tefillin of the arm is less holy than the tefillin of the head, and therefore you can't take something that is made for a holier purpose and lower it to the arm. However, the tefillin of the arm, you can't upgrade it by putting it on your head. Now, this may not be so practical that someone just has one, but you should know the halakha. There's also idea behind it, that you have to always push up in spirituality. And not just talking about the straps. You're also allowed to take the parchments that were made for the hand and use it for the head. But if he made a t'nai, but if while he was writing, he made a t'nai, right? He made a condition. He said, I will be allowed to use this for hand or for head. If he made the t'nai, the condition, before he started writing the tefillin, then it's not a problem and he can mix. All right, Rabotai, thank you for your flexibility to coming on a day earlier. Bezrat Hashem, we'll see you in a couple of days.
Thank you, Ziv.
Thank you.
Asiya Tova.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Zakbar.